What's up, everybody? It's Coach GC, and I am here for the May edition of the Final Focus series. And I really appreciate you all for being with me for the first three editions of the series. I'm looking forward to many, many more. So today, I got a unique opportunity to bring on a friend who just launched her own law firm, and that is attorney G. Gutierrez. Now, G is a remarkable guest who has made tons of waves in the legal world with over a decade of experience. She has founded Exhibit G Law Firm. Dope name, by the way. Her practice focuses on employment law and is uniquely situated to advocate for both employers and employees, something you don't see too often. So, G brings a wealth of experience in labor and employment law. She's represented clients before key administrative agencies like the EEOC, the National Labor Relations Board, as well as several federal and state courts. So her practice covers a broad spectrum, everything from employee-related matters, discrimination, retaliation, unpaid wages, things like that, all the way to whistleblower lawsuits, severance agreement negotiations, and any of the claims under the FMLA, the ADA, ADEA, and Title VII. So lots of stuff. Importantly, though, and more recently, G has a specialty in non-compete and employment contract litigation, which I know is a big deal since the federal government just came out with some new rules. No spoiler alerts. I'll let G tell you a little bit more about that. G and I have gone back to the Florida Bar Board of Governors Young Lawyer Division, and she has worked with me then and has always been an amazing advocate for her constituents as well as just the overall population of Florida. She's an amazing person, and I look so forward to hearing everything that she has to say. I'd be remiss, though, if I didn't talk about her extensive community service involvement. She's been big in the community as a whole, but particularly in the legal community, including being the president or the immediate past president of the Cuban American Bar Association, where she raised, I believe, over $1 million for her voluntary bar association. So hopefully she'll talk about that. I'm not going to mention where she went to law school. I'm sure she'll sneak that in. But despite that, she's still an amazing human being. So I am very happy to bring on the guest who is going to tell us a little bit more about launching her law firm successfully in the first 30 days of it. Ms. G. Gutierrez, Attorney Gutierrez, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Coach GC. I am so grateful to be a part of this opportunity that you've given me, and I am really excited. I'm not quite at the 30 days, but I definitely am nascent in the business, and I'm excited to share the little that I know. That's one thing that I've always tried to do is reach out, even if it's someone who's your peer. If you have any advice for them, hand it over. And people have done that throughout my entire career. And so I try to do stuff like this as much as possible, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
And have you found that unique? I remember when I launched my own law firm, I felt like I was surprised by how many people were willing to help me or willing to give me forms, willing to give me documents, even people in my exact same practice area. It was shocking. What about you? Has that been your experience so far?
That has been my exact experience. I've been, I don't want to say overwhelmed because it sounds sort of like a bad thing. It's a very good thing. I've been overwhelmed with the amount of support that I've received from colleagues. I mean, literally from high school to college to law school, opposing counsel that I've had, and even folks at my old firm. Everyone's been incredibly supportive. So I think one of the things I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay, yeah, all right. Sorry about that.
No
Just the
worries.
world didn't want me to shine that moment, but I'm glad that I'm back. No, so I'm so glad that you've had that similar experience. People talk about the legal profession, and they forget that it's a profession, right? Uh, we represent the third branch of the government. We're an extension of the judiciary. So for the overwhelming majority of us, we truly care about advocacy. We truly care about our clients, and we care about making sure that they get their day in court. But even though we're zealous advocates, and I know there's a debate about the word zealous, but even though we're zealous advocates, we're still professionals at the end of the day. And we are still charged with treating each other with a certain higher level of, dignity and professionalism. So I'm really glad to hear that that's been your experience out of the gate. Speaking of out of the gate, like you said, you're within the 30 days of launching your own firm. And then you rolled out with Exhibit G. Fantastic name. I'm a name guy. Love the name. But can you tell me? I know there's a lot more to it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what went into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I've had that as my Instagram handle for, I don't know, almost a decade. Um, and I've always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something with it. I didn't know what. I had purchased the domain, I don't know how many years ago, and it wasn't to start a law firm. When I went ahead and did that, it was just, I really liked it, and I think it encompassed a lot of things. And when I was figuring out what I wanted my law firm name to be, there's nothing wrong with having, your last name as your law firm, but I just couldn't. It didn't feel authentic to me. It didn't feel genuine, and I had a vision to do something different, something that was a little bit out of the box. Um, Probably not every potential client is going to look at that and say, "Oh, that I want Exhibit G law firm." But there are going to be a lot of people that it's going to stand out to them, and they're going to say, that's really interesting. She's doing it differently. Let me give her a call. In addition to that, I think the letter G represents a lot of things to me. So not only is it my name, a lot of people call me G, but it also represents to me God first, and putting faith before anything. I am a very religious person, and I have always had that as sort of my guiding light in everything that I do. My son is named Gabriel, so he is the number one priority in me and my partner's life. And and then some words that I think really capture what type of law firm I want to host, and what type of lawyer I want to be. I want to practice with grit. I want to practice with graciousness, and I want to practice in gratitude every day. Because regardless if it's a challenge, anything that's in front of you, you have to be grateful for it. It's there to redirect something, it's there to teach you something, it's there to prepare you for the amazing future that's in front of you. And so living in that gratitude and having that be present in my everyday practice was really important. That's a little bit about the name and why I chose it.
I mean, you know me, I'm partial to the letter G as well. So I think it's fantastic. I can't believe you beat me to the handle. I thought you were just cyber squatting me the whole time. But it, it is remarkable to hear just how much it means to you. And it shows the level of depth and thought that went into your launch. So let's develop that a little bit more though. So did you feel fully prepared when you decided to launch your law firm, or were there elements that that were there that were keeping you from taking that leap of faith, or were there elements there that were pushing you toward taking that leap?
I don't know that anyone feels fully prepared to start a new business, much less a new law firm. Um, that being said, I think there's the legal preparedness, right? Do you have the experience to really do this? Do you have the knowledge? Are you disciplined enough to own your own business? Those are questions that people need to answer for themselves. No one's going to be able to answer that for you, because even if someone doesn't think so, if you feel ready and you feel prepared for that challenge, it's up to you. It's your decision to make. Um, it does involve a leap of faith, right? And I think really that it comes down to the decision. It comes down to when you decide. That's always the first step that I heard everyone talk about. What's the first thing you do when you start a law firm? It's you have to actually decide that that's what you want to do. You can't just think about it. I know a lot of people especially when I first told folks, hey, I've made this decision and I'm going to be leaving the firm and I'm start going out on my own, hanging my own shingle. I had a lot of folks tell me, you know, that's really incredible. That takes so much courage. I wish I could do that. So people do think about this and they think about what potential future they could have, but it is about actually deciding. I went to a conference a few weeks ago. It was a real estate conference, randomly, but I got invited by a friend, and there was a speaker there. His name is Ricky Carruth, and you would think he'd be talking about real estate the whole time, and he really wasn't. He was talking about transforming your life. And one of the things he was talking about is you don't transform your life. It doesn't take a year to lose 100 pounds of weight. Right? That's not what takes a long time. What takes the time, what really makes a difference is the moment that you decide I'm going to lose 100 pounds. It's actually instantaneously. It's the same thing with going out on your own and starting your own law firm. Um, Once you make that decision, the rest, it is a leap of faith, but that's really the key. And whether you feel fully prepared before or after that, I don't know, but that's the hardest part of starting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that first step, right? Especially, you talk about faith. It's that first step into the abyss, and you have no clue if there's even another stone there for you to step on. But you take that first step anyway. And so look at you going forward, full steam ahead. And so let's talk about mindset because you talk about coming out with faith, and I think you absolutely have to have faith, right? Because unless you're leaving the firm with a whole bunch of clients already, it's you got to get a new client, you got to get a new base of clients, you got to get people to understand that they can trust you, um, instead of whoever else they were trusting before that. So what went through your mind, that made you feel like I absolutely know I can do this?
I think it's a mix of things. So the first is building confidence over time in your abilities as a lawyer. And but for me personally, I looked at my family history. So my parents are both Cuban. They were exiled from Cuba and they moved to this country. My mother, when she was very young, with her parents, my grandparents. And I mean, you're talking about people in their late 20s, 30s, early 30s who had an entire life. They left all their family behind. And they said, we need to do this for a better life for our children and our children's children and children's children's children. And they left Cuba, and my grandparents actually went to Los Angeles when they got to United States, and there was a very small Hispanic community, I mean, very, very small. But after some years, they went ahead and they saved, put together some savings, and they started their own business, right? And that was the American dream for them, to live in a country with freedom, to have the opportunity to reach any height that you wanted to reach. And they were very successful in their business. Ultimately, they closed it down. They had a restaurant called Las Palmas. They closed it down because my grandfather passed away. But I think about my grandmother not speaking English and being able to have a small empire where she was feeding all the Cubans in Southern California with cantinas. You know, if she could do that, I can't live in fear of failure. I can't live in fear of success either. That's another thing that's not talked about enough. Um, and I was really inspired by my family's history. So I think between that inspiration and building up the confidence over time in my legal abilities, it just became the next natural step.
All right, so you're fueled by generational, you know, passions in entrepreneurship, right? As a way to truly express oneself and really fulfill one's purpose and destiny. I had a different story. I had one of necessity. I graduated. We graduated about the same time, roughly. Still the economic fragility in the United States, and I got out originally. I got accepted to the United States Air Force JAG Corps. I was working with Detachment 145, and then found out I had a medical feature that would not allow me to join. I was graduating early, so it was just like, oh man, what do I do? Take the bar, pass the bar, first step, check. All right, now what? My dad's a lawyer. He's a judge now, but my dad's a lawyer. I'll go work with him. Murray and Murray will be for the profit. We'll make lots of money, right? And then, so the moment I'm like, hey, Dad, let's go ahead and launch this firm together, he's like, I just got elevated to the bench. Good luck,
Wow.
right? Gives me a couple cases. He's like, good luck, son. Um, and there's just no such thing, at least to me, no such thing as an unemployed lawyer. So I hung my shingle. But was there something that was like a pivotal moment for you or a factor for you that made you say, now is the time. Now I am going to leave.
I think it just came down to courage.
Hmm.
I felt like I had the courage to do it. And I felt that maybe if I didn't do it, the courage would go away. So I didn't
Wow.
think about it for too long. It was not something that I sort of simmered on for months and planned, and we can sort of talk about that too. But it's not like I had a shop ready to go because I had been scheming this up. It just really from one day to the next, I said, here we go. Or I like to say, here we grow.
Oh, I like that. I might steal that.
take,
You
take
see,
it.
see if you got that copywritten. Um, so it's funny though that you mentioned scheming up, right? Because a lot of people in your situation, the thing that triggers them to leave is finances. Typically, in your medium to large firm, you're bringing in about a third of what you're worth to the firm. Typically, um, the first third goes to the house, the next third goes to share amongst all the partners or the admin cost, and then the last third goes to you. It's typically what I've heard these medium to bigger firms, and that typically is what makes people say, you know what, I can do bad all by myself, even if I get less money. I'm getting less money of a bigger portion, and that's what makes them leave. But you left because you were told to leave. You were told to leave by your faith, and that's amazing. And so what did you do? What were the steps that you took once you had that moment of clarity of I need to go and I need to go now or I won't be able to go. So what were the primary steps that you took in launching your firm after that?
I definitely prayed about it a lot. And once I did make that decision, I made sure that I had my family's support and buy-in. Obviously, that it's going to be a big change for my family, and it's not a decision that should be made in a vacuum. It's going to be all hands on deck. I have a 2-year-old son. Um, we hope to expand our family in the future, so it's definitely it was a family decision, and I didn't really do much. I think I talked to a few folks who had started their own practices and then went back to a bigger practice. Again, they went back to a law firm because I wanted to understand, everyone who's still on their own, they obviously love it. It's obviously going great for them. But for those that hung their shingle and said, maybe I want to go back to a big firm, I wanted to understand why. And none of them regretted it. All those folks that I talked to, none of them really regretted it. I think there was some challenges that they just didn't, even though they could deal with it, they didn't want to deal with it. And ultimately, that's why they made the decision to go back to a bigger law firm. But none of them regretted that time in their lives of having their own firm. So once I talked to a few of those people, I said, look, there's the little downside. There's a lot of upside. I'm a good lawyer. The worst possible case scenario is I don't get one client and I just apply, to have another job, which I felt confident that I could do. So I said, I'm going to bet on myself. My family's going to bet on me, and we're going to give it a shot. And then I honestly, handed in my resignation shortly after that. And I didn't start planning the actual logistics of starting a law firm until after that point. I didn't feel it was appropriate. I spent, almost 13 years there. It was an amazing firm with amazing people. It was really important to me to keep those relationships. They've been my family for so long. It was one of the hardest parts about deciding to take this next step, was kind of closing that chapter. But the planning piece, I can give you resources, and it'll come together. I don't know if I can share some resources, but there's a whole list of
Oh
things
yeah.
that we can do. One of the biggest
All right,
resources
school us.
is, pardon?
I said, yeah, go ahead and school us.
So one of the after I had already left the firm is really when I started doing the plans of, okay, how is this logistically going to work, and what are the steps that I need to take. And the Florida Bar has a wonderful resource called Legal Fuel, and Legal Fuel has so many different parts to it, but one of the pieces that it focuses on is helping lawyers in Florida start their own law firm the right way. And I'd love to share, if I can, that everyone can get a view of it. And so this is the Legal Fuel, Knowledge Center. Are you able to see this?
Yep.
And then you can click on Start a Law Firm, and it basically, will give you all these different resources, getting started, talking about trust accounting. Trust accounting is, if you've listened to Florida Bar President Scott Westheimer, or incoming President-elect Roland Sanchez Medina Jr., you'll know that one of the places where lawyers get in trouble the most is in their trust accounting. And there's different reasons for that, but the Florida Bar has put together a lot of great resources to help attorneys avoid those pitfalls. And so reading the trust accounting rules, understanding those rules, reading the advertising rules, understanding them, all of that is very important. You want to make sure you're practicing ethically and within the rules that everybody else is. And then part of in a Legal Fuel, they also have like a little checklist, which I thought was incredibly helpful, just to make sure you're dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's. And I'll share that with you as well. This is the checklist. And so whether you're doing this, pre-leaving your current firm, or you're doing this after you sort of close that chapter, this is a great resource because it has everything from, okay, I need a business plan, I need to set up the entity, and then there's resources on the Legal Fuel to say, all right, do I need a PA, or am I going to go with a PLLC? And what are the differences between those two things? Because they have legal and tax consequences. You got to file your EIN. You got to, have a license sometimes to practice in certain municipalities. Are you going to have an office? Are you going to work from home? Do you need to hire an accountant? Got to learn QuickBooks or another way of organizing, the cash coming in and out. You're running a business here, so all of those pieces. I don't know where I learned some of these skills, like building my own website and running my social media, but I was able to do that in short order, right? Within a couple of days, I was able to have that up, no issue. So this is a great resource to keep everyone in check, making sure you do everything you need to do when you're starting your own firm.
Anytime we can get a Scott Westheimer, Scott's my boy. Anytime we can get a Scott and Roland shout out, I think we're on the right pathway. Got to shout out also Saya, who's coming in. I know you're close with her as well, so we got some exciting Florida Bar leadership. And it just goes to show you how much we are truly a profession, because only a profession works so diligently and puts forth so much in terms of resources to provide the individuals within, we're all competition, so to speak, in many respects. But we have to do a good job, and we do a good job of making sure everyone has the resources so that we can all perform at the highest of levels, not for our own sakes, but for the sake of the citizens of Florida and for those who practice in other municipalities and jurisdictions. So it just really is such a just a phenomenal uh, profession. So shout out to the Florida Bar. But let's talk about, you mentioned it, let's talk about some of the logistics and some of the challenges you kind of face at the very early stages. You mentioned it was mostly smooth, but you did have some challenges. And what were they?
I think the biggest challenge, especially when you're going solo, like maybe you have a person who's you're going to partner up with, and they're going to kind of take the admin lead. You're going to take the, lawyer lead. Um, but when you're solo, you wear all of the hats. You wear the marketing hat, you wear the accountant hat, you wear the billing hat, you wear the timekeeping hat, you wear the pick up the mail hat, the um, respond to that. You wear the intake hat. You wear all of the hats, and so really learning how to manage your time. There's a great book. I'm a big Audible person, so I'm going to throw out a lot of books suggestions for folks today. There's a great book called Eat That Frog, and it kind of teaches you how to really prioritize what is the number one thing you have to do today. It gives you the methodology about how to really identify that most important task and how to put your procrastination aside of doing maybe funner tasks like a social media video and getting what needs to get done. But wearing all the hats, I would say, is the biggest challenge when you're starting off solo.
Yeah, you're a Miami Heat fan, so I know you know the famous Pat Riley phrase, "Keep the main thing the main thing." So
Yeah.
that's always a challenge, because when you're starting out on your own, how do you determine what the main thing is? And if it's left to your own intuition, who's there to validate whether or not you're right? So that's always a tough hurdle, and a lot of my coach lawyers, a lot of them struggle with that because they're like, I don't. What I'm good at is the thing that I launched the business around, right? But all the aspects that make a business or make a business profitable, I'm not good at, and I don't know how to prioritize those things. So, was there anything that stuck out to you that you really felt was a bigger priority than most of the other stuff? You clearly already had the legal acumen, but in terms of running the firm, was there anything that stuck out as priority number one?
I wanted to understand the trust accounting rules. Like I said, I've seen a lot of CLEs on how lawyers have fallen, in that trap of getting in trouble. And I didn't understand why. Honestly, I had heard I don't know how many CLEs, and I didn't understand why. I mean, there's the basic. Um, you have lawyers using money from their trust accounts that they're not supposed to be using, right? They're going on vacation with it. They're doing other stuff. Like that is like basic, right? But most lawyers weren't getting in trouble for that. I think those are the ones that you see getting reprimanded by the Florida Supreme Court, or just barred or suspended. But a lot, I mean, there's hundreds of them that got in trouble a year, and a lot of them didn't have to do that. They weren't keeping track of what a client paid and whether they were able to take some of those funds out or not. And so understanding those rules, I took that very seriously, and I still do, because you know I'm in the first 30 days. You usually don't send out bills until those first 30 days have passed at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, or however it is that you have in your engagement letters. So that's still very much top of mind.
No, I bet. And your practice area is that of complication, because you can do and represent both employers and employees. You're probably flipping your billing strategies. I imagine when you're billing employers, it's either a flat fee or it's going to be, an hourly rate. Whereas when you're working with employees, perhaps you're taking it on contingency. So I know that there's a lot of there's distinctions between the two of them. So I know that's got to be a whole set of complications that I would not be surprised if the CPA is the first person you hire when you start hiring people. But
I hired.
let's talk about let's talk about how you are tackling kind of the not just the legal but the financial foundations necessary for creating a new law firm. What's been your strategy there?
Well, when I started out, I didn't have a strategy because I didn't really, like I said earlier, I didn't plan on this. So it's not like I had just had this in mind and sort of saved a bunch to be able to launch. And I think a lot of people do that, right? So if this is something that you're thinking about, I think making sure you have some savings, particularly if you're going to do the plaintiff's work, because that doesn't that doesn't pay out immediately or maybe at all, depending on how the cases go. Sometimes, you don't usually file a lawsuit and settle the next day. And with employment law, there's an extra layer because when you take a plaintiff's case and it's a Title VII, you have to go to the EEOC or another regulatory agency first. And you have to ask them permission to sue the employer. And they have, you know, almost hundreds of days to get back to you. So all of that time is really downtime. And you got to have a plan. Um, I would say if you thought about it a little more than I did, you should have a plan. But there's things that you can do if you sort of find yourself in some need of funding. You can always get a line of credit. It's one of the resources that Legal Fuel talks about. You can talk to a bank, give them your business plan, make a business plan, provide it to them, and ask them for a line of credit. I, was lucky enough to have some clients that I'm working with on an hourly basis, and I didn't need to do that right now, but it's good to know that that's always an option.
Okay, no, one of the biggest things I've realized through all my professional travels is I do not know enough bankers. If you're a banker out there and you're watching, holla at me because I need more banking friends. I need more people that are in the rooms where these decisions are being made. I need to know a little bit more about what factors they consider important for when they make their decisions. So the future final focus will probably be some kind of banking episode. So I'll keep you all posted on that.
Well,
So
I'm happy to
let's
introduce you to a lot of our community folks down here in South Florida. We have so many wonderful community banks, and I decided to go with one of them as really a thank you for supporting me, and I might go honestly with a couple because they've just been incredible. And you said something about competition earlier that it kind of, it really piqued my interest because we are in competition, but I really don't see us in competition, if that makes sense. And I think the banking is like that too. I think there's enough. There's more than enough to go around. And the better lawyer you are, the better you can service your clients for a good value. I think the more people are going to want to get a lawyer. A lot of people avoid getting lawyers because they're worried it's going to cost too much, or we're going to get lied to or duped. Maybe they had a bad experience in the past. So the more lawyers we have doing a good job for a good value, I think the more people will come to lawyers for help. So I'm happy to introduce you
absolutely.
to all my banking friends in South Florida.
All right, you guys heard it here first. She's going to introduce us to all of her banking friends. We'll have to do part two of this launch series, and we'll roll that out at some point. Let's talk about expansion then, or less about expansion because that might be too broad of a term. But let's talk about the vision that you have for your firm because like you said, when you're a good lawyer and you can provide value to your clients, you'll tend more often than not to have clients, and you know clientele won't be an issue for you, right? So that's what you seem to vision for your firm, but is there any more that you envision being able to do?
I think right now I just want to be a good lawyer to the clients I have and make sure I'm doing a good job on these, right? I on these cases that I have right now and the folks that are calling me every day because I've been blessed, honestly, like you said earlier, so many people have reached out to help. My phone has not stopped ringing and I hope that continues. And I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. So I'm not really thinking yet about, am I going to be in all 50 states? um, I'm not there yet. Maybe one day. What I do think is interesting for me that I hope to achieve. There are two things. Number one, I think there's a need in South Florida for attorneys who are Hispanic or who speak Spanish to be a resource for employees and employers in South Florida. And as much as we have, a big exile community here, immigrant community here, like none of those people are just employees. A lot of those people are employers, and they don't understand the laws. Um, when they come to the United States, they're coming with that same American dream, but they have sort of the ideas of a different country and how those rules work. So they don't understand all of the ins and outs. And I would love to be a resource to some of those businesses who maybe if someone would have told them early on, hey, this is how you do something, they could avoid a lawsuit that may take them out of business later. Same thing for employees. We have a lot of great Hispanic attorneys in South Florida, and a lot of them practice in labor and employment. But I still think that it's not enough, not enough of those attorneys to fulfill the need that we have. So I hope to fill that void. And the second sort of goal is I want to make sure that as soon as possible we start giving back to the community, whether that's free legal clinics, or I don't know, a Thanksgiving drive or something. I honestly feel that it's part of my purpose is to give back, and I want to make sure that that's a core value of the firm. So in the short term, doing a good job. In the longer term, hopefully filling a need that the community needs.
All right. Do you think you'll stay solo forever, or do you see yourself adding more lawyers one day?
I honestly don't know. I love collaborating with people. So that may give you a hint, but today I don't know.
All right. So you talk about being a resource. So I want to see if we can pivot, not to put you on the spot, but we did just have a major, or not just, but we recently had a major change to non-compete agreements and even to some overtime situations in the U.S. Do you care to talk about that? You want to give us the quick 30, 60-second
Yeah,
review on that?
I'm happy to talk about the FTC rules. So there was a rule that came out by the FTC that basically said, we've looked at this and we read all the 26,000 plus comments, and we've decided that non-competes are really unenforceable. Obviously, there's some exceptions to that. Not everyone is regulated by the FTC, including some nonprofit organizations, and there's some exceptions for executives or in connection with the sale of the business. But really, they said this is not gonna fly long term. So we're gonna make them not only future ones unenforceable, but retroactively. And almost immediately there was a challenge in Texas federal court, and there's been a couple more in Texas immediately after that. That we don't know what the state of the law is going to be. The rule is supposed to take effect, I believe, the first week of September. If there's no stay right now, there hasn't been as of today's recording, but you know, I the area of the law is very uncertain at this point as to next step. So I will be continuing to update you all on
All right, but I'm free to compete. That's what I'm hearing. Like, I'm gonna rip up on my non-compete agreements and let everybody know I'm back. uh, look, we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Let's give a broader overview and kind of give us some words of wisdom for anyone who is at this very moment thinking, I really should launch. I really should launch. I'm just waiting on a sign or I'm waiting on a push. uh, I think you are charged with being that push because somehow, some way, even though they're not connected to me, they're not connected to you, they're going to hear this episode of Final Focus and they're going to know that this was their moment. So, floor is yours.
Opportunities, they will knock at your door. Sometimes they'll knock twice, but more often than not, they don't. And if you feel like you're ready, if you feel like you're prepared, if you feel like you have the support, and the only thing holding you back is fear, I would take the opportunity when you can, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow or next month or next year or in 10 years from now, which is the scariest part, right? Think of your life. If you had this exact same life in 10 years, would you be happy with it? Or would you say, I wish I would have done something a little differently? This is your chance. Um, I'll leave you with a story that I think kind of sums up, what starting a law firm is like. And maybe you can say, well, it's not that bad. I can do this. A few years ago in 2021, I had made some vision boards. I'm really big on vision boarding and kind of seeing, what my future could be, what's my potential, what do I want out of life. And one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to run a half Ironman. Now, if you know anything about completing triathlons, you for half Ironman, it's a pretty grueling race. You have a 1.2-mile swim. You have a 56-mile bike ride. And then when you're done with that, you have to run a half marathon, which is a 13.1-mile run. And you have to do it all within 8 hours or else you're disqualified. So it's definitely a test of physical endurance, but more than anything, what I learned in my training was that it's a test of mental endurance. When I would tell people I'm gonna do a half Ironman, and I was a runner, but I wasn't a swimmer and I wasn't a cyclist. They would tell me, "Are you crazy?" And this might be the response that you get from some folks if you tell them that you're going to start your own law firm, especially if you're at a really good place and you have a really good setup. They would say, "Why would you do that? You could just be comfortable and chill on your couch. You don't need to go run a half Ironman." So they might have that response. They may also have the response, which I heard a lot, is, "Oh, I wish I could do that, but I can't do that." Right. So those like kind of self-limiting beliefs that people have. But you start training and you have the discipline to say, okay, I'm going to get in the water, a few times a week. I'm going to get on my bike a few times a week. I'm going to run every day because that's where I feel my strongest. And I think I'll be able to finish the race strong if I can do that. And then you get to the race. And I remember getting to that race. I had a big cheering squad, about 15 people, including my 90-something-year-old grandmother who is still alive today and was there supporting me on my race. And I get in the water and I immediately like freeze up and I'm like, what did I do? Why am I here? Why am I here right now, 5 a.m. in this freezing water, wearing like a scuba suit because I bought the wrong suit to sort of stay warm. And I said, well, I'm already here. Let's go. And I just kept looking at the next buoy. Okay, I can make the next buoy. I can make the next buoy, and celebrating each win as I went along the course. And ultimately, I was probably like the third to last person out of the water. You also have to finish each of the individual sports within a certain amount of time, or you're disqualified. So I made it in time, and as soon as I got out of the water, I said, okay, I could do this. And I went onto the bike, and sort of the same thing happened, which is I got really tired and I was doubting whether I could do it, but I just kept going forward and putting faith that I was going to be able to finish, and I was going to finish healthy, and I was going to finish strong. And mile by mile, I went on through the 56 miles, and I got to the race part where my feet could touch the ground. And I was so grateful for that, because that was my strongest. That was my strongest sport. And I started running the miles, and I felt, and in the beginning, the first few miles, I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm ready to go. And mile 5 hit, and I said, oh my God, I'm so tired. I went from like an 8-minute mile to a 10-minute mile. And I said, I'm running against the 8-hour clock here. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I had everyone cheering me on. And ultimately I said, yes, I can. So I had to keep telling myself that I could do this, that I was prepared enough to do this, that I was strong enough to do this, because it is a total mind test. Of course, there's some endurance to it, right? There's some physical piece of it, but it's a total mind test, whether you think that you can do something. And I remember coming across that finish line and saying, I did it. And I had all my family there. I have a picture of my grandmother. And it was amazing. What that showed me was that, it's not going to be easy, right? I learned that. And I think that's the same with starting a law firm. You're going to have many challenges along the way. You can't even plan for most of them. Right? You can't plan for court emergencies. You can't plan for someone, maybe if you have staff quitting on you because they got a better job or more money, or you can't plan on having health issues. You can't plan on those things. But what you can plan on is having a strong mindset, a strong determination, a strong belief in yourself and faith. If faith is part of your life, that you will persevere, that you will make it. And that's what I think starting a law firm is like. You just got to keep telling yourself that. And so if you're thinking about launching, I'm not telling you to go run a half Ironman. You don't need to do that. But I would encourage you to really believe in yourself. And if you do, the rest will line up.
Wow, I'm not doing that. Oh my God, no, that is incredible. I can't believe you ran an Ironman or a half Ironman. That's phenomenal. That's a level of badassery that I have not achieved. But I am proud to know someone who has, and I'm proud to know you. And I thank you for being on today and being a tremendous source of just happiness, happiness, faith, and as you said, courage. So really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to you coming back on the series later on with all your banking friends, so we can kind of get a better understanding of how we can leverage these resources so that we can better practice. So I appreciate you being on today, G.
Thank you. I'm
All right,
so
everybody.
grateful for the opportunity. And I want to make sure that everyone watching, if you have a question, if something I said wasn't clear, if you want some additional advice, I'm here as a resource. So many people have been in that, like I said earlier, for me. And I want to be that person for other folks coming up. So just reach out. I'm available.
All right, dope. And we'll make sure that for all of you all watching us on LinkedIn Live, make sure that we add her contact information in the chat. And you can feel free to reach out to her if you're an employer or an employee or a lawyer looking to launch his or her own law firm. So certainly, again, congratulations on the Exhibit G law firm, and
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing some amazing things out of you, counselor.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. So that's it for I'm getting so many comments, right? So a lot of people want to continue with this. Like, what do we do with the next after the first 30 days? And for some of you who, you've been practicing for a little bit, or you've had your firm going, and this was a good, to me, a good precursor to see whether or not you did those things. And how many of these things did you check off on your checklist? But for those who are um, in firms and you're thinking about making that leap, or for those who are in firms but you're happy with where you are, but you would like to be a little bit better at what you do and how you manage your time, I still am running the Master Your Time course. And so you can use the QR code and you can scan it, and you can go ahead and sign up for a free discussion with me, just to talk about how you can be a little bit better at your time management. Because ultimately, and particularly if you are a solo or a small firm lawyer, or really any lawyer at all, or really any professional, how you manage your time is hugely important. And it speaks to how you're able to deliver on your promises to your clients, to your firm, but more importantly, to your family and to yourself. So for those who are interested in that, please let me know. We also have the LEAP program that we launched last year, the Entrepreneurial Acceleration Program. And we cover a lot of the major four domains in launching a law firm. So if you're interested in any of these topics, you got the QR code, and you always know how to reach out to me. Again, thank you all for being here for another Final Focus. We'll see you guys next time. All right. Bye, everybody.